And Richard, you're obviously, between us, we're covering hopefully the full spectrum of people who present for care with their allergic rhinitis. But I'm interested, there seems to be a very big push to regard allergic rhinitis and asthma as part of a spectrum of disease. And that concept of one airway, one disease, do you think that's where we should be moving to?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those artificial constructs from Western medicine, the fact that we divide the airway into the upper and the lower airway really by specialty divisions, but the disease process itself really involves the entire respiratory system. And there's always those statistics that talk about that, 80% of asthmatics have rhinitis, and
exactly.
maybe 60% of rhinitis patients have asthma, but really in studies where they've really gone looking for it, where they've taken rhinitis sufferers, challenged them, those who didn't have asthma symptoms, and challenged them to see whether they actually had a hyperactive lower airway, it almost approaches 100%. And so we believe that if you've really got clinical evidence of reactivity in one part of the airway, that you've almost certainly got the same response to some degree, whether it's clinically apparent or not, going throughout the whole system.
Which obviously makes a lot of sense, but...
It pathophysiologically makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I think the division of the disease entities and even their names is really one that's really constructed out of the way the medicines develop, rather than our understanding of the disease process now.
So Richard, do you think there's a downside to people just manning up and thinking I'm the kind of person who always needs a tissue in my pocket?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's some big problems there. I mean, there's no doubt that someone who suffers more from rhinitis than they do from asthma, the upper airway is the poor cousin here, because very poorly controlled rhinitis will never lead to the same morbidity that poorly controlled asthma does. I mean, people, once you get very severe allergic reactions in your lower airway, you really can't breathe. That accounts for hospital admissions and emergency department admissions. But the upper airway is very significant. So productivity analysis has been done in rhinitis to show that there's billions of dollars lost by people undermanaging rhinitis or suffering from rhinitis. It's the sort of the health metrics that you're using to discuss whether or not how important it is. If you're talking about hospital admissions, it's probably not going to hit the mark. But if you talk about impact on people's life and productivity, it's a big difference.
Yeah, it does have a very adverse impact on lifestyle, doesn't it? Whether it's work or leisure or school or whatever, sleep disturbance.
Yeah. So there's some studies in childhood. I mean, we talk about childhood rhinitis. Absenteeism from school is very high. There's an English study to show that children with allergy and rhinitis that go untreated actually have worse school performance than their non-allergic peers. And so there's some very strong evidence there in that more controlled population of
so
kids.
We need to treat it.
That there's an impact there on life. Yeah.